All right, it is 11 o'clock. Hi, you guys. Hi, I'm Natalie from So Hungry Hippie. I did the ticking banner across the screen so that you know where to go for this new pattern that I've just launched. So right now it's in PDF. I am going to have it printed professionally from Wisconsin Printing Company. It's just probably going to take a week. So for right now, the PDF, this is how it'll print. You will notice that the front and back cover print like this on one page horizontally. I think this is called landscape. And the reason is because in my mind, I have you folding it down the center so that it's like this. And then with the instructions, you can fold those in half once you're done and finish sewing your quilt. And you just tuck it inside, and then that fits really nicely, either in a plastic bag if you have one, a Ziploc or something, or in a basket that's more manageably sized than an 8.5 by 11. So that is why the front page prints as one. I'm just trying to conserve paper, be cognizant of the resources, right? Hey, Ruby, can you shut that for me? Thank you. We don't have school today, so this will not be a long live, just an FYI. Okay, so the Patchwork Quilt pattern, which is this quilt behind me, and the pillow, which I forgot to bring up here, are both included in this pattern. And because I've gotten several emails about what's inside, I thought I would give you sort of a teaser and let you know that this is a skill builder pattern, meaning what I've written, I've gone through it so much with many, many friends, testers, proofers, the whole lot, in designing a pattern that you can use for other makes. If you don't want to do this kind of a quilt, that's fine. I have so many sizes included in this pattern, but not only that, skill sets. And what I mean by that is I talk about color. I think one of the most common emails I get is in regards to color and fabric selection and how they coordinate in a quilt. So I spent some time, actually a whole page, talking about color and fabric selection in a way that everyone can understand. I'm not an art school graduate. I didn't go to color school. I don't have, color technology under my belt in any way. I do think I have an eye for color. It's just something that I've always had, I think. And some people have that naturally, and some have to build on it. And it's just a skill. I have to build my technology skills all the time. I'm so bad. It's not intuitive technology for me. Computer stuff, not intuitive. So I can sympathize when things don't come naturally. And so that's why in here I talk quite a bit about it. And on the live Zooms and the live sessions that I'll be hosting throughout the Sew Along month, I will go into this more. If you need personal help, I'm there for you. If you join the Sew Along, which is at sohungryhippie.com, you just scroll down, it says sign up for the Patchwork Quilt Along. You will get my weekly emails regarding the Quilt Along with more in-depth tips, not really tips, short videos, like snippets, I call them, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, from questions that I receive in my email inbox. And I will dissect those and go into those in more detail if people need it. So that's a bonus of signing up for the Sew Along. We are going to start October 2nd and we'll be done by the October 30th. Many people will be done probably within a week. The beauty about this quilt is you build one block and then you just repeat. Not the same, but it's just the same skill. And you do that 16 times. So how cool. It's one of the best projects for stress relief and Netflixing and sewing, or podcasting and sewing, or listening to an audiobook and sewing. Oh, here's the pillow, mystery delivery. Here's the Patchwork Pillow that I made a while ago. And I'll go into more, I'll talk about this more in a second. Let's stick with the quilt for right now. Hi, everybody. Hi, good morning. Lovely Friday morning. Hi, Jennifer, Marita, Kristen. Yay, Kat. Hey, Kat. Hey, Debbie. Debbie says, I purchased the pattern last night and downloaded it. So excited for this quilt along. Me too. I am so excited for this because it's just one of the best gateway makes into quilt making. And by that, I mean, do a quilt like this, and no matter how unperfect it is, the finished quilt is still going to look so good. Even if the seams aren't lined up perfectly, this quilt works every time. Believe me, I will be showing my first patchwork quilt where almost none of the seams line up. And I've kept it on purpose because it still looks good. A non-quilter, a non-sewist would see that quilt and think it's gorgeous. And I mean, it's just patchwork. It just works. So I'll go into that more in a bit. In this pattern, I have built diagrams. Talk about computer technology. I've had to teach myself Adobe Illustrator, and let me tell you, it's no joke. I have a diagram in color. It's diagram 5, and I show you exactly how I nest my seams and stick my pins in. And it's a technique that works for me every time. And I learned that over a period of time. So I have experimented with all different ways, and this is what works for me. So I included that in the pattern. That's something you can take to any other quilt pattern or any other sewing pattern for that matter. Let me go through here and see what else. Oh, I made a color-coded chart. I have a lot of you asking me, well, you know, I want to bust my stash up, so I can't make a 5-inch patchwork square, which is what we're doing in the sew along. I took it down to 2.5 inches. So if you want to make tiny, tiny squares and have a big, gorgeous quilt at the end, I've shown you what to cut and how many rows and how many columns to build. Now, saying that, oh, and I went all the way up to 10-inch squares because I have done all of those sizes. Now, I didn't keep all those quilts. I sold a lot of them because I used to have to sell my quilts to help pay the heating bill. FYI, okay? You don't have to, so what I'm saying is I won't have a physical example of everyone, but I think I have photos of all of those. So I will show you how they look at the end. And this is my tip. If this is your first one, do the 5-inch patchwork square like I'm going to do in the sew along, because it's an excellent size where the finished quilt looks patchworky, but not too busy. When you get down to that 2.5-inch size patchwork square, your finished quilt is going to be very, very busy. Now that's a look, and I have one physically I can show you during the Zooms, and we'll put it up next to the other sizes so you can see what I mean. But a 2.5-inch square is going to give you a very busy quilt at the end. And so for your first time, that's why in the pattern I recommend, look, 4 and 5-inch patchwork squares are what I recommend if this is your starting point, okay? Personal opinion, but you're going to get lots of that from me, whether you ask for it or not. Kristen says, we're heading to the quilt shop in a bit so my daughter can pick out the rest of her fabrics. This is such a fun project to do with your kids. Even if they're just semi-interested or like rolling their eyes in the background, get them involved in the fabric picking like she is. Even if it's from your scrap stash, say, hey, you know, can you help me pick out some fabrics to do in this quilt, or help me coordinate colors, or like I made a green and white one for my daughter because that's what she wanted. But I had asked her, look, I got to bust my stash. What would you want if a quilt is forced on you? And she said, oh, well, I want a green and white one. So I did a green and white one. So you can go more monochromatic in this make if you want to. I'm going to do all sorts because I think a lot of you are looking for ways to bust your stash, and this is going to do it. So I tell you the yardage in here. If you're working with charm packs, you're going to need 6 packs plus a few extra squares. If you're working with fat quarter bundles, you're going to need 22 fat quarters. If you're working with yardage, you're going to need 11 half-yard cuts. If you're working with full yards, 5.5 yards. The reason I don't want you to go and buy 5.5 yards though, is because I really recommend you have 10 different fabrics as a minimum in this quilt. If you like this look that I have behind me, it just gives more of that folksy patchwork feel. But that being said, if your only fabric is 5.5 yards in your sewing room and you just want to get through that, just do it. Just make that work. It's totally fine. You know how I am with rules. Rules are made to be broken. So I'm here for it. Kat says, can't wait for the Zooms. Me either. The Zooms will be 6 p.m. Central Time on Sunday nights. I found that that's a good time where everybody can kind of just take a chill pill out of their weekend and get together. It's like a support group. We just show up and we talk about some stuff, help each other out with questions or fabric issues or cutting, or if you just want opinions or whatever you want. They're fun. So Laura says, I'm going to work on my scrap piles for this. So what I'm doing is I'm working on a scrap pile, and I had 12 fat quarters from a particular fabric line that I bought, I think 2 years ago. So I'm going to use that and mix scraps into it. And so during the lives, I'll show you how I select those scrap fabrics that have nothing to do with this curated line and make it work. And I don't want to talk too much because I give you so much information in this pattern. Right now, this weekend, for the next week or so, maybe, it's going to be $5. And I think that's really, really such a deal because of all the info you're getting. For 2-3 years, I've gotten emails about creating a pattern like this. And I kept telling people, you don't need a pattern. You don't need a pattern. You don't need it. Just do it. Just do it. And I realized that when you're starting, things are so scary. And I know when I pick up my crochet needle again, I'm always like, and I feel frozen. And I like going to my friend Selena Baca's website and just starting over again. So I get it. If you want a pattern, now I get it. It took me a while, but I got there. And that's why in this one, because I'm charging for this, I wanted to have all the extra information in here for you to take and move forward on other projects. I hope I'm clear about that. Of course, I've gotten an email like, why are you charging for this? It's so easy. That's okay. You can have that opinion and carry on. That's fine. I've also gotten the opposite. You're not charging enough for this pattern. This has so much information. Why isn't it $12? And I'm just going to do what I do, which is I have an idea and I go with it. It's $5 for right now. It'll go up to $8 eventually. So go get it if you want it. Let's see. On one of these pages in here, I have diagrams that I went through with my testers so many times. I'm showing you how to cut a fat quarter. For some of you, you will think that's silly because you just do it, right? You've been doing it a while. But for somebody brand new, it's nice to know how to cut properly a fat quarter. Nobody taught me that when I started, and I was just wasting fabric right and left because I just dove in the deep end, right? So I have a diagram showing you, look, this is how you lay it on the table. This is what you do. And then you turn it, and then here we go, and this is how we cut. And it's very simple, but I think it'll help, especially if it's newer to you, to see what I mean about how you're cutting your fabric. So there's less waste. Oh, I have a whole nother page on how to cut your half yards also. So I just want to make it clear. I wrote this for you. We're not building long rows. Somebody asked me about a YouTube video that I did a while ago, which was row building. We're not doing that. We're going to make this in blocks, and I think it's a better way to make sure that your color variation is easy to manipulate. And you'll have it in here, the diagrams. I show you how I build the blocks and then how we're sewing them together. So Ruth was in the last sew along for Candy Crush and told me that the row building made her crazy. So I really spent some time on that, on how to build this in a very simple way, and also in a way where you can pop open your sewing machine in front of the TV on a little card table and sew some blocks right there and not have to worry about working with big, huge, long pieces. Okay? I know a lot of us just set up our sewing table in the kitchen for the time being or whatever. So I'm cognizant of that. Hi, Delva. Yay. Yes, it's going to be so much fun. This is such a fun way to sew. Hi. Debbie says, definitely a great price packed with so much information. Oh, thanks, Debbie. Thank you. Yeah, try, right? Try to make it simple for everybody. On the next page in this pattern, I talk about, with a diagram, the nesting of seams and also which way to press. So there is a way, full disclosure, my first quilt, I didn't press anything. I mean, I'm so embarrassed to say, but I didn't know. And you just don't know what you don't know, right? So that was a big reason none of my seams lined up on that first patchwork quilt I made. So in this, with a diagram, I show you, look, this way is pressed this way, and this row is pressed this way, and they're small rows. So it's very easy to manipulate. It's easy if you press the wrong way to just switch out that row if you want, or it's just pressing. You can always repress. But that's in there. Thank you, Amy of Tansy Designs, because she forced me to put that in there. She said, no, you have to, because I'm always thinking, well, people will just do what they want to do, you know. But she's right. It should be in there. Okay, so then we get into the meat of the pattern, and I'm showing you how I build my rows. I even included a page where I've circled areas that are a problem in my mock-up, and I explain why it's a problem. And I circled those because I want you to see what I'm talking about. And so that's in there. I think it's a good idea because when I say don't put likes together, you can hear it but not really understand it or how it will impact the quilt. So that diagram is in there for you to see. I also have a paragraph on how to know exactly how much backing fabric you need for your quilts. Okay, this is the backing fabric, the back of the quilt. I put that in there with like a box around it so that in the future you can use this formula and make it work for any kind of quilt you ever make in your whole life. It'll work every single time. This is what I use. And it gives you a little extra in case you want to send this to a long armor. They always need an extra on the ends, more so than you would need if you're quilting it at home on your domestic. However, I love having the extra because then when I trim that, I just use it for binding if I want, or scrappy projects, or the scrappy pillow. Remember this? This is in the pattern. Okay, so then I talk about quilt sandwich a little bit. And then I talk about machine binding, and I give you a little 4-minute link on how I do my binding. And I am going to do a live demonstration of how I join my binding ends using a tool. It's very confusing, but not. So it's simple, but it's confusing. So that's why I'm going to do a live demo. I'll record it and then post that during the sew along. Okay, so there's the quilt. And then we get into the patchwork pillow. And people will be like, well, you have a patchwork pillow pattern for free on your Google Drive. If you sign up for my newsletter, you get that. And that's true. And that's the traditional way of making a patchwork pillow. But I have graduated, and I now use this easy piecing grid from 10 Sisters. And I recommend you get a pack of this. She has all different sizes. It's a family-owned company. So I would just jump on their website and grab a pack. You'll get a whole bunch, okay? And we'll use this in a future project. It's not going to be wasted. I have plans. But this is not cut to the correct size, but this is what I mean. I just cut a chunk out, and I tell you how much in the pattern. And then we build it with this. And this is where you have your little scraps and you fuse them to here. And then you fold and sew. And I have video of this, so don't worry. Ah, can you hear that? Oh, the police are coming to get me. So I have a video demonstration of me doing the pillow this way in the pattern. The link is there on my Vimeo. And then I also have some photos. It's very, very simple. And again, this technique you can take forward and make your own patterns and use this cool fusible grid. It's just so good. I do talk about adding pom-poms. I've been doing this for quite a few years. I know there's another quilter out there who has a tutorial. We do it a little differently. And I think it's worth checking out all the different techniques and then find what works for you best. So on my other patchwork quilt, I put pom-pom edge all around the quilt. And I always get a million questions about how that washes up. To be honest, it washes up fine. If you have like lint or thread in your laundry, it will grab on to those pom-pom balls. So after the laundry, I'm usually picking off some threads. You know, it's kind of like that happens to my husband's socks. It's just annoying. It's something I have to deal with. If you have dogs or cats who play with stuff, that's where your issue will be. So some of my pom-poms have been removed by Tori the pug. As you can see, she likes to bite them and pull them. I don't know where they go. I guess she eats them. But that will be the only issue, is the pet thing. And that's optional. I will not be doing pom-poms on the sew along because I'm out. I paid for them 6 months ago and they're still not here. So it is what it is, right? C'est la vie. And that brings me to the end. Oh, and we do an optional self-made pillow insert. I show you how I make my pillow inserts because I'm not paying $20 for an insert of polyester fill for my pillows. So I show you how to use your leftover quilt batting. So that's the pattern. That's 23 minutes of me explaining the value of it. Hopefully you have some more info there. Let me go through these questions. I have never done a quilt. Is this a good one to start? Absolutely. This is the one to start. If you're, like I told people Candy Crush is fine for a beginner quilt. It was the skull one. And it is because it's basically patchwork. However, this is like 100 times easier because placement isn't such an issue. We'll talk about color placement, fabric placement, but not design. Like the design is the patchwork. That's why I love this. I do these all the time. I never get sick of them. So yes, Dava, I think you would be amazing at this. You do such amazing bags. Definitely. I'm changing my mind on what I'll use for my stash, says Pamela. Awesome. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. It's a great way. So I have some 5-inch square rulers coming in. Probably today they'll get here. I only bought a few, but I will put those in the shop when they arrive. Using a square acrylic ruler like that is a great way to use your scraps. So you know how scraps can be all which way in shape. I give them a press on the ironing board. I set it down on my table, and then I put my square ruler down wherever it'll fit. And I cut out with my rotary cutter the squares. You could also trace if you rather, and then cut with your scissors. But I think the acrylic ruler and rotary cutter is much easier. Just practice. It's the quilt police. Oh my gosh, that's so good. I should have said that. What does Julie say? I'm a newbie quilter and I bought 2 patterns and they have no instructions other than putting the blocks together. Yes. Oh, I'm so glad you found me, Julia. I know, right? So that is what kept happening to me as a new sewist also, is that kind of thing where the pattern writer is assuming you have all this back knowledge. And I Oh, it drives me crazy because I don't know if you've ever tried like garment patterns from the big box stores. I won't say their name, but they do that same thing. And it's like, I don't know what understitching means. And I would have to Google it and, spend 20 minutes figuring out what that meant. So in all of my patterns, I really make an effort to assume you don't know anything. And I run it by my testers and proofers and ask them that. I tell them, be ruthless, pretend you don't know anything. What am I missing here? And I put that information in there. I depend on them for that because it's easy to forget and just assume people know. So I'm so glad you found that. Yay! I hope you're in, Dalva. I'm so excited. I just love you. The right ruler for the job makes life so much easier. Isn't that the truth? Yeah. I did an Instagram post where I put something like tools make a difference. And it's so true. It's so true. Tools make a difference. And I was talking about things like rotary cutters and acrylic rulers as well as fabric. So there is a hierarchy of fabric, as you know, if you've been sewing a while. There is cheap fabric and there is high quality fabric. And it doesn't matter what you use. I don't care. I used cheap fabric a lot and I still do on certain things because I'm frugal. I want to save money too. But the higher quality fabric makes life easier on you. It's easier to work with. It's easier to cut. It will wash better. It won't fade as much. It won't fray as much. Your quilt will just last longer. It'll look prettier. Like there's a reason quilting cotton is $10 and $12 a yard. That stuff is expensive. And those fabric shops, they're not making a big markup on fabric. FYI. It is not a big markup. Oh my God, I'm getting emotional. This is sparkling water, not beer. You are such a great beginner helper. You get it. Haha. It's funny. I was thinking about this the other day, and I'm just going to add this here real quick. How do I say this? I don't want to toot my own horn, but I have never been the best at anything in my whole life. So, for instance, I ran cross country in high school, and I was probably the worst runner. I'm not naturally built to run. I'm not fast, but I give it my whole heart every time, and I never quit. I just don't quit. And coaches throughout my life have seen that out of me. And there's something to be said for that person. We all can't be the gold winner, the gold medalist, right? So I just stick it out and follow through. And the other day, it occurred to me that all those star runners on the cross-country team, the track team in high school and college and whatever, I thought, I wonder how many of them have run and finished a marathon, because I have. And I think that is the whole turtle and the hare story, isn't it? You just don't give up on yourself. You just keep going. And that's why I always say, we are not after perfection here. I'm not perfect at anything I do. I never have been, but I am about taking action. And I think that is the most important thing. It doesn't really matter how your finished quilt ends up because it's going to be yours. It's from you. It's your action. And every single step of action makes you better, makes you a better person. It gets you better at the skill you're doing. And I think it creates depth of character, to be honest. So don't be afraid to start. Nobody is going to judge you on your finished quilt. I am going to post everyone's quilts. I'm here to share and support you. And I just want you to take action. That's what I'm saying. So don't worry about showing up and trying to be the best at whatever it is, because that's few and far between, I think. I don't know. What am I trying to say? Okay, so I thought this would be like a 10-minute talk, and we're at 31 minutes. So I want to just go through any other questions you may have. Let you know that you're going to be supported on this quilt along. Yeah, build on what you do, what you enjoy doing. That's exactly it. And be bold. Totally. Yep. Keep each other motivated and be kind. Exactly. Yes, Debbie says perseverance. Exactly. That's what it is. And that's, I bring that story up often to my kids, even because you can't do something to try and automatically be the best at it. The whole point of it is the doing, the action. So, yay. All right. Well, let me know if you have questions later that you think about or think of. You can email me. You know that. Natalie@SewHungryHippie.com. Be posting on Instagram. Remember the sew along. We want you. All are welcome. There's no cost for the sew along. If you don't want to buy the pattern, you're still welcome. It's okay. Bring your friends. If you have a friend that's always like, oh, I want to get into that. Well, bring them over. Let's get them going. You can cut up clothes even if you really have no fabric and do this. I have cut up denim jeans before because, jeans in and out of style, 300 pairs, not 300, but 20 pairs of jeans. Nobody needs that. So I've cut up jeans and done a quilt like this. In fact, I still have that. I think it's in my car. So I will get that out for the live. All right. I think that's that. I so appreciate you being here. I really appreciate you guys sharing and liking and bringing your friends over. That's how this grows in our community, and people know that they're not going to be judged here. Not from me. I'll only judge if you're mean. And then I'll get over it real quick. So, all right. So it looks like, I know. For signing up for the sew along, it's at SewHungryHippie.com. There's a little square viewable on your mobile phone or on a desktop or an iPad. Just click that, and it takes about a second to load the page. And there's an email sign up box at the very top. Put your email in there, and then you'll be on this sew along list. So what I don't want to do is email everybody on the email list with all this information if they don't want it. Some people are just not into quilts. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up. It's Friday. I hope you have a great day, a great weekend. Take some time for you. Sew something. Doesn't matter what it is, right? Cut into your stash. Start pressing your stash. And then we're going to start October 2nd. So I hope to see you there. Thanks for being here, you guys. Really appreciate you. Have a great day.